Okay, so I got another tutorial for you using drivers again. Become kind of fascinated with drivers. All right, so what I'm gonna be doing here on this particular tutorial is showing you how to affect um, how to open its trunk, basically. So we're gonna be messing with something on its rotational axis. All right. If you're absolutely new to drivers, what a driver is, and we try to keep this video time condensed. If you're absolutely new to drivers, what a driver is it's basically taking one value and affecting another value with it. That is it in its most simple or elementary form. That's it in layman's terms, breaking it down to irreducible complexity, I guess. Taking one value and affecting another. That's what you're doing, essentially. Okay, so I'm going to show you just practical example super quickly of what a driver can do. And I want it to be quick, so I'm not going to explain a whole bunch of what I'm doing. But here's what we want to happen with this driver. I want to be able to select this, what do you call it, this chest here, trunk, whatever you want to call it, and I want to rotate it to open up on its x-axis. That's what I want to be able to do. Okay, that's what I want it to happen right there. That's what we want to happen. So I'm going to show you what a driver can do. But I don't want you to think this is how we're going to implement this. I don't want it to be implemented this way. I want to do it with a few more parameters of what you're about to see. And like I said, I'm trying not to explain a whole bunch what I'm doing here. I mean, I'll talk a little bit to let you see, or kind of explain what I'm doing, but I'm not going to go into depth for peep. Okay, first thing we're going to do here real quick, I'm going to set up to add a cube in the scene. All right, that's going to be our value or our entity we're going to be controlling this thing with. All right. So just going to do a little bit of adjusting here. I think that's fine. All right, good to go. So now we've got our two little elements here. All right, now I'm going to add a driver on this lid here. We're going to be using this to control it. All right, I think that should do it. We're just going to lock these other parameters so we don't have to fiddle around with what axis we're on. Okay, so that should do it. So when I move this cube here, you notice that my lid opens up. That's pretty neat. That's pretty nifty. So that's what drivers do. I'm grabbing one item and I'm affecting another. So you might think, well, a cube isn't a value. Well, I guess not. But check it out real quick here. Let's move it over here. If you notice that X, it is a value, does it not? So let's move it over. Whoops. Let's move it over here. The value, but it's not the same though. You see, if you notice, just focus on that X there. It's changing. So it is a value affecting, you go here, it's affecting the value of that. See? So it is a value affecting value. So I think that I did state it correctly when I said it was irreducible complexity as far as explaining what a driver is. So cool beans. So now I'm going to show you the way that I want to implement this, which is a bit more parameters, and it will take a little more explanation, but then you'll learn something that I think is more practical. Because who the hell wants this big ass, or it's not big, my bad. Excuse me. Who wants this cube floating around in their scene? Nobody. I'm good. So no, I don't want that. So I want it to be much more subtle, but it'll still achieve the same effect. Okay, so we'll get rid of this thing. Matter of fact, let me zero this out so I don't have to wonder what where I'm at or whatever. Okay, we got that zeroed out there, and we'll get rid of this driver here because we're not going to use it. So we'll delete that driver, and we don't need you anymore, Mr. Cube. So you can go too. All right, we're at the 5-minute mark. So I just showed you how to do that. Now, let's show you how I want to implement this. Okay, we're gonna need some basic things here. Okay, so first thing we have here is this empty. And empty, I can't explain everything because then I'll go way over time. I want to try to keep this 15 minutes. Okay, but what I do have is this empty. Everything in this trunk is parented to the empty. If you notice, I didn't grab the trunk, I grabbed the empty. Everything in the trunk is parented to it. So therefore, what we're going to do with this empty is we're going to create a custom property for the empty that will show up in this panel here. If you notice, when I select this trunk here, it's associated with the trunk, but it does have properties there. See, when I select this empty, you don't see any properties available. Not yet. We're about to implement some. So let's go ahead and do that, because that is the first prerequisite. In this particular example, you're going to have custom properties. We're going to only have one. Custom property is going to be opening up this trunk. So let's go ahead and do that. When you have your empty selected, you're going to go over here to your object panel. Not the empties, you would think, but no. You go over here to object panel, and then you scroll down where it says custom properties. You're going to add one. And there's your custom property. If you notice, it pops up over there. That is not very useful right now, because it is not applicable to what we're doing. Let us edit it. So we go over here to edit, and we're going to edit some of these values here. So the name of it needs to be a convention that's easy, that it's going to let you know what it's referring to. So for the property name, what I'm going to name it is chest open. Chest.open. And just like Python convention, you like to put periods in it, underscores, etc., etc. It's not a super good habit to be putting spaces and stuff, because then when you go to type stuff in, it's just not good. Just try, what do they call it? Concatenate. You want to concatenate your property names if possible. All right, chest.open. Or it could have been chest.close, trunk.open, whatever. Okay, property value right now, we're going to change those, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not going to mess with them right now. All right, tooltip, what does it do? Well, this will open or close the chest. Okay, so now we got that good. Remember, we will be changing these property values and the minimum and max, I'm pretty sure. The property name, I'm going to make a note of that right here. It was chest.open. That's what it was, so that's useful. We will need that later. Okay, so we have our first step done. We created a property, a custom property for this empty, and you can see it right there. All right, next step we're going to do is we're going to create some limit on the rotation values of this here lid here, because I don't want to just open it up and hit in the back of it, or open it up from some weird angle or something. Open it up sideways. No, I want it to be on the rotation of the x-axis, period. That's it. And I only want it to open up 90 degrees. So let's make that happen. So again, we have it selected, the object that we want to affect these limitations on. So you're going to go over to your object, what is it called? Object constraints tab. I already have it in effect here, but as you can see, I used the limit rotation constraint. You can see all the different ones you can use here and whatnot. I use the limit rotation. And then just using, a little trial and error, math, etc., etc. My minimum is 90 and my max is 0. If I can't remember that, let's just type it in real quick. It's minimum -90 and the max is 0. The reason I did that was because we need to go back to that empty. Remember those values that we didn't update? Well, let's update them now. Because right now, the property value is at 1. Not very useful right now, because remember the max is 0, so that's not even applicable actually. So we go into the edit, property value right now, we're gonna leave it at 0. And then the minimum will be -90. You can see your cheat down there just below the window there, and then 0. And I think we're good to go on that. All right, so we'll go ahead and okay that. Let's just give it a quick test. I know it's not going to do anything. We haven't even added our driver yet, but good. We got -90. We got 0. Good. So let's just keep that at 0. All right, cool beans. So we got step number 2 done. All right, step number 3. We need to create a driver now to affect that transform. And then we're done. And that's not too bad. And I'm not even at the 10-minute mark. I am at 9 minutes and 36 seconds, but I'm not at the 10-minute mark yet. So cool beans. So let's add that driver. All right, so what do you want to add it to? Well, you want to add it to this, because this is the thing that's going to be affected, correct? So we want to add it to that. If you notice, my rotation is all zeroed out, so that's good. That's what we want. Okay, so we're going to add it here under the X. We want it rotating on the X-axis. And we'll just bring up this little annoying thing there that shows you that's your Z, that's your Y. What do they call that? A gimbal, I think. That's your Z, that's your Y, and that's your X. So I want it rotating on the X just to let you see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to do it on the X there. So I'm going to Control D as I have my cursor hovered over that particular value, and I'm going to manually create my driver. And there it is right there. So what we need to do now is just click that, left click it. You do right click a whole bunch in Blender, but you can left click to select that. And here's our driver information. So we're going to do a little bit of changing. On that cube, if you were just watching, you know, when I was doing a little cube example, I was changing everything on the, this is called the transform channel. So when I moved that cube, then it affected the rotation of that trunk inversely. But we won't be using that. What we're going to be using is single property. So we're not using rotational difference or distance or transforming. We are using single property. I wonder what single property we'll be using. Probably we'll be using the property that we just created, because it'd be silly to create that and not use it. So that's what I want. So when I select this empty, this property that we custom created, boom, I just slide it and it opens up. Isn't that be neat? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's make that happen. So going back, where am I at? I'm lost. Okay, here we go. Okay, so going back here, we have options to fill out for this custom property. All right, well, variable name right now isn't super important, but we'll go ahead and name it chest. How about chest rotate? Okay, so we're going to name it chest rotate. That's what it's going to be doing. It's giving me an error right now, but it's because I haven't filled this out, but we'll fill it out. Okay, the property that is associated with is going to be associated with this empty, because remember, it's the one that has a custom property. So we select that. And then the data path, or the RNA path, is going to be what I made a note of earlier, and I'll show you down here, chest open. So the reason that I prefixed it with this is because this is the parameters that you have to input to make this work. It's square brackets and then quotation marks in the middle. So open up square brackets, quotation marks, chest.open, and it has to be verbatim. I don't mean verbatim from what I typed, but I mean that this has to match that verbatim. If you have a typo, that's your fault for not going through and double checking your work, you know what I'm saying, before it didn't work. Okay. And then the last thing is this variable name, we named it a variable name. Okay, so I need to transput or transfix this variable name from here to there. It needs to match, you know what I'm saying? So that's chest rot. And here's another thing, invalid Python expression. That's why I was saying it's real good to concatenate or, you know, condense your names. You can't have spaces in Python variables. Okay, that's a no-no. So if I make it chest rot, and it's not chest rot, that sounds nasty, but it's freaking chest rotation is what it is. You notice that error went away. So now when we go here, let's update our dependencies now. So when we go here and select this empty, and goodness, it's going nuts. Let me let's I need to probably use soft values. So let's but you see it works though. Yeah, it's probably want to use some soft values on that because that thing's going nuts. So let's go real quick and just edit that. But you see it works though. Okay, right here, we're just going to edit this. We're going to put some floats on this so it can open up a lot slower because it's just going nuts. All right, so we're going to start this back at 0. And the minimum here is going to be, I'm sorry, 0.000. What that does is create a float so that it'll go from 0 and then you'll have a decimal place and it'll be a lot more fluid because that was bad. All right, that's a lot better, right? Okay, but you see it works. I think that's neat. And it's I think it's useful. The only thing is, well, I can't think of anything that's pretty sweet to me. So I think that was handy dandy. And we didn't exceed 15 minutes. I think that was a very useful tutorial. I think that you learned something, hopefully. And appreciate your time. Cool beans. All right.